All right, Grace and Truth, we have arrived at the great and powerful Psalm 50. Here we go. The Mighty One, God, Yahweh, has spoken, and summoned the earth from the rising of the sun to its setting. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God has shone forth. May our God come and not keep silence. Fire devours before him, and it is very tempestuous around him. He summons the heavens above and the earth to judge his people. Gather my godly ones to me, those who have made a covenant with me by sacrifice, and the heavens declare his righteousness, for God himself is judge. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. O Israel, I will testify against you. I am God, your God. I do not reprove you for your sacrifices, and your burnt offerings are continually before me. I shall take no young bull out of your house, nor male goats out of your folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird of the mountains, and everything that moves in the field is mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and all that it contains. Shall I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of a male goat? Offer to God a sacrifice of thanksgiving, and pay your vows to the Most High. Call upon me in the day of trouble. I shall rescue you, and you will honor me. But to the wicked, God says, what right have you to tell of my statutes and to take my covenant in your mouth? For you hate discipline, and you cast my words behind you. When you see a thief, you're pleased with him, and you associate with adulterers. You let your mouth loose in evil, and your tongue frames deceit. You sit and speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son. These things you have done, and I kept silent. You thought that I was just like you. I will reprove you and state the case in order before your eyes. Now consider this, you who forget God, or I will tear you in pieces, and there will be none to deliver. He who offers a sacrifice of thanksgiving honors me, and to him who orders his way aright, I shall show the salvation of God. Whoa. So this is what God sounds like when he's having one of his kids write a song where he is not happy. This is God writing a death metal tune, and you can picture him screaming it. There are a couple of things to dig out that really kind of encapsulate everything else, and this is what we should take away with us. God here is very displeased with people who claim to be his people. They quote the Bible, they take his covenant in their mouth, they tell of his statutes and so on. But then they give, as Romans 1 would say, they give hearty approval to the people who practice the exact opposite. And God's like, I'm sick of it. I don't want the hypocrisy. I don't want the lying. I don't want the evil. I don't want any of that. Just stop it. He says, I don't want anything to do with you guys. And then beyond that, they go and they offer him a sacrifice as if that's doing God some kind of good. And so that's where you get this wonderfully but scarringly sarcastic phrase in verse 12. He says, if I were hungry, I wouldn't tell you, for the world is mine and all that it contains. You know, like, he's doing a thought experiment. He's saying, let's go for a second with this idea that maybe I, God, lack something. If that were the case, it's not, but if that were the case, where would I look to fill that lack? To you? What do you have that you have not received? What do you have that I didn't already give you? David nailed it in 1 Chronicles 29:14. He says, all that we have comes from you, and from your own hand we have given you. You see, so an offering from us literally adds nothing to God. So he doesn't need us for anything. He is independent of his creation. Verse 13, he continues, shall I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of male goats? Like, oh good, he offered me a bull. Now I can finally have dinner. God doesn't work that way, and you know this. Guys, we do the same thing when we sin against God all week and then offer a tithe on Sunday, right? Like that's blood money. That's not something that he's impressed with. It's stained. It's a filthy rag. So, human condition doesn't change. We do all the same stuff. So he says, look, knock it off, quit doing all of that stuff. But he tells them, and he says this twice, like in verse 22, he reiterates, he says, consider this, you who forget God. That's an important phrase, you who forget God. How often throughout our day, throughout our week, is God not on the front of our mind, not in the back of our mind, but totally out of our mind? You see, I would suggest that it's okay to not have God at the front of your mind all the time. When you are, if you're a nuclear engineer, you got to focus on what you're doing, and it's okay to not be thinking about, the hypostatic union and the deepest parts of Christology in that moment. It's okay to focus on your task. That's good. But If God's not even in the back of your mind somewhere, if your daily thoughts are directed somewhere other than anything that has to do with him, then you and him are on divergent paths. And he doesn't want that. He wants a relationship with you, right? So he says, listen to you who forget God. Consider this, or I will tear you in pieces, and there will be none to deliver you. Judgment's real. So how do we avoid the judgment of God? Well, our first response to that, just our gut level reaction to that, should be the gospel. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We were separated from God by sin, but reunited to God through the person and work of Jesus Christ, right? So we cling to the cross, and we are reconciled to God through the work of Christ. But he says here, in a very practical sense, he says, he who offers a sacrifice of thanksgiving honors me. And he who orders his way aright, I shall show the salvation of God. So we're saved for eternity by the work of Christ from the first time that we call on him to the day of our death and all of eternity. We're saved by Christ. How do we live that out in a practical way? How do we experience the salvation of God one day to the next? We offer a sacrifice of thanksgiving. It was told to me when I was a kid. I didn't really get it at the time, but I was told the two most important words you're ever going to learn are thank you. And I've come to believe that, because when you thank somebody, you're saying a couple of things. You're saying, you have done something that benefited me. You have added something to me that I didn't add to myself. I acknowledge your gift or your sacrifice or whatever the case may be. Now, when you give thanksgiving to God, what you're doing is acknowledging him. That's the opposite of forgetting him. So verse 22, don't forget me. Verse 23, offer an offering of thanksgiving to me. It's impossible to be forgetting God while you're thanking God, right? So how much stuff do you have to be thankful for? Go down the list, and as you go to work, this week, just start. You don't have to be thinking about this all day, but just start by counting some of your blessings and praying some prayers of thanksgiving. And that will keep you from the dangers that God promises to judge in Psalm 50. Okay, we will be on relational terms with him rather than on the terms of enemies. We don't want to be there, and we want to warn others of the wrath to come as well. So let's be thankful to God, go about our week, and I'll see you guys throughout the week.